Yo, what's up guys? Got a pretty sweet deal on this motor here. Came with a bunch of stuff, so let's check this thing out. So yeah, this motor is a 1996 Johnson 28 horsepower, 2-stroke long shaft, set up for remote start. Now it's pretty much ready to go. Has all the control cables, shift cables, battery cables, even the steering arm. Yeah, all hooked up. The guy told me it was a runner. I didn't even fire it up at his place, but I realized when I got home it was missing the key, which kind of sucks. But I just ordered, off Amazon a ignition switch with the key, so I'm gonna never have to rig that up. Yeah, he even threw in a pretty sweet aluminum console that I'm gonna rig up to my boat. There's a 12-gallon fuel tank somewhere in my messy ass garage in here. So yeah, I only paid 150 bucks for this whole package, which is a pretty sweet deal. The motor itself looks pretty clean under the cowling here for its age. Worked on these motors before. They're pretty solid motors. They do use like the older style lower units from like the 70s and 80s, but that's fine. Yeah, it has electric start, so let's see if she's a runner or not. Okay, I got this new ignition switch rigged up. Here's the old one. It's pretty hard to see, but there's letters next to each post. So as I took off the old one, basically just wrote down what letters go with what color wire, and then just rigged it up the same way. Alright, so my GoPro is acting up. There's actually a new GoPro I'm filming on, so I did a few things to this Johnson here. So I took the carb off, gave that a clean. It's a little bit of a pain on this motor to get the carb off. You gotta take off the starter motor and slide that out of the way to get to the nut back here, and there's a nut there. So clean that. Still wasn't running quite right, so I did actually, there's a little T-valve here that allows fuel to come, and I think just the zip ties were just not tight, or just the fuel lines were just a little bit warped over the years. So I put some stronger clamps on there, so it was leaking a little bit of fuel and a little bit of air was getting in, and then tweaked with this air mixture screw, got that to the right setting. And then lastly, I just advanced the timing a little bit right here with this screw, so that advances the little cam follower right there. So with all those fixes, it seems to be running good now. Pretty decent water too. Yeah, I got this Johnson 28 all rigged up to this boat here. Can't remember if I showed this or not, but I've had this console like sitting on my side yard for like 2 years, so I got it for free. So I kind of just modified it a bit and got that rigged up, since this is a console motor, no tiller. So yeah, just gonna test it one more time and probably gonna take it out to the water tomorrow, see how she does, do a little fishing. We're out here on the lake here. It's been pretty crappy weather the last month. It's super foggy, but finally the fog's burned off. So we're gonna test this Johnson 28 right here. I just did a little test run. This boat's a little bit too light. It's starting to like porpoise like once I go over like 20 miles an hour, but yeah, motor's running pretty decent, so let's send it. Oh yeah. Alright, some bad news here. I mean, it was running great all day, and I noticed it stopped running all of a sudden, and the fuse right here blew. So this fuse was right here. There was a spare. I put it in, and it blew again. And so, even with the new fuse right here, nothing's happening. So, look, I had some extra fuses, so it's already blown 2 fuses. So this is the 3rd here. Yeah, when you turn the key, nothing. So I'm kind of thinking there's a bad ground somewhere. Maybe the solenoid, maybe the starter motor, but I do have a little kicker motor, little 2 horsepower there for instances like these, so I might have to use that. Or I think I might try to jimmy up a rope here and try pulling the flywheel over, or I can try jumping the solenoid here. So let's actually try jumping the solenoid here. It's kind of a hard spot to reach. There's a post here and a post here, but I think I can maybe make it work. So let's see if that fixes it. Doing something. There we go. I mean, other than the fuses blowing, it's actually running pretty good. Being good water. Alright, this Johnson 28 behind me has been a huge pain in the butt, and it all stems back to this stupid little part right here. This is this aftermarket ignition switch I had purchased because the previous owner had lost the key for it. At the time, I couldn't find an OEM like Johnson or Evinrude ignition switch, so I just went with this aftermarket one, which I've had pretty good luck with aftermarket parts, but this part in particular caused me a big pain in the butt and a ton of problems. So basically what was happening on the water is that I would turn the motor on, and then when I would turn it off and try to fire it up again, it would blow this 20 amp fuse right here. So luckily I had a few fuses, because every time I would turn it off and try to fish and turn it back on, it would blow. And I got down to my last fuse, and then this ignition switch just stopped working altogether. So I was able to jump this solenoid and get back to the ramp. But being able to jump this solenoid kind of tells me like a few things. One, that the ignition switch is potentially bad, maybe the neutral safety switch, maybe some corroded wires. But basically I went through this entire motor just to rule out any other potential issues. So I literally went through all the ground wires for the starter solenoid, even tried a new solenoid that didn't work. Yeah, I peeled back a ton of electrical tape just to make sure that none of the wires like related to the, you know, power pack or ignition like coils were like frayed or nicked. And ultimately too, what I found is that this negative battery cable was getting like really hot when I would turn the key on. And so what actually happened is that I think just from blowing so many fuses and trying so many times, it actually fried my starter motor. So this is a spare one I had lying around. Here's the original one here. It actually burned up the starter motor, which is crazy. So going through my garage, I actually had an older style Johnson from like the 70s and 80s ignition switch. This one is a non-kill switch kind. So this aftermarket one has the kill switch attachment, while this one doesn't. The problem is that the threads on these are really shallow, while this one is about like an inch or two longer. And it's longer because it has this piece for this style control box, which has this little notch right there that connects to this notch right here. And so the issue with this is this sits in this slightly upward position with throttle, and you can't shift the gears into forward or reverse unless it's all the way locked down right there. And so because the threads are so shallow, I can't connect that nut onto this plastic piece right here. So I had to get a little creative. I just found a screw with a pretty good size head, drilled it in there, and so now it's able to connect to that latch there. So all because of this stupid little aftermarket ignition piece. If I would have just was able to find an OEM one, I would have fixed all my problems, and I wouldn't have burned up my starter motor and had to do all this extra work. So do some research. I'll actually include some of the reviews on these aftermarket ones, which I should have read. Sounds like a lot of guys were having this issue with it blowing fuses. In this case, it blew up my starter motor. So other than it blowing fuses on the water, it was actually running pretty good. I did notice it would kind of randomly surge sometimes, and come to find that on the fuel pump here, there's a little gasket in there that had went bad. I've since replaced, and like at high RPMs, it was just dribbling tiniest bit of fuel right there. So I tightened down that nut and changed that gasket, and so now it's not leaking any fuel. So yeah, I've been running this motor for like almost an hour, probably pissing off all my neighbors, but I've shut it off like a bunch of times, like probably at least like 50 times to the key switch, and it hasn't blown that fuse yet. So I think it's safe to say that this motor is finally dealt with. This little modification I did, it's working pretty good. It's pretty snug there. Pick up this piece of crap motor for dirt cheap. Let's see if I can get it running. So yeah, this is I don't even know, like late 80s, 90s Tahhatu, 5 horsepower. It was painted. I think it belonged to a sailboat club is what the guy told me. But yeah, it's 2-stroke, long shaft, came off a sailboat. Yeah, it's pretty rough. The cowling is pretty, I don't know, interesting and beat up, painted weird colors. But yeah, these are super simple motors. I like these motors. I've owned a ton of these. So yeah, I think I've gotten every single one of them I've had running. So yeah, let's see if we can't get this thing running. So yeah, right off the bat, I see that it's supposed to have NGK BP7HS-10. This is a auto light, which I don't like. So I should have one of these NGK spark plugs lying around. So let me change that. Yeah, like 137, slowly dropping, but plenty good. So should be good to go. Alright, here's Tahhatu all painted. Yeah, these decals, used to sell her a bunch on eBay. Vintage Marine decals. It's got like the best decals, super affordable. yeah, just spray painted it, painted the body too, looking a whole lot better than it was. So yeah, let's just fire it up one more time, make sure she's still running good. All the gears working. Yeah, these are super reliable motors. Reverse, neutral. Give us mark jams. Color's still pretty decent too. Yeah, I just picked this 2006 Mercury 99 yesterday. Pretty clean condition. So far I've just hosed her down. Haven't even tested compression or spark or anything yet, but she's complete. Yeah, so far I re-glued the cowling last night. This rubber was off of it, so that's on now. Yeah, so I pulled the spark plugs out of it, and they are super clean. Looks like they would barely run. Took a little PB blaster, shot that down the spark plug holes, turned the flywheel over so it's not locked up. It's 114 or so that's not bad. So let's see what the bottom is. Yeah, even also at 114, so even compression, good start. All right, I got the top spark plug grounded on the block, so we should see some spark. Okay, bottom spark plug. Should hopefully see some spark. Yeah, that oil looks actually really good. It's not brown. Looked like it was at the right line. So yeah, lastly, that leaves fuel. I did notice that this little rubber boot here might have a crack on the top. We'll find out once we fire it up if it leaks. There's this little plunger piece right here, and so when you hit it, you kind of see, yeah, it's leaking fuel out of there, which it shouldn't because it's got a crack in that boot. You know, I have seen too that they sell aftermarket carbs for pretty cheap for this motor. I think this model, it's 2006. I think you can actually convert this to like a 15 horsepower from my understanding, with a bigger pitch prop and then the bigger carburetor. I might go that route, we'll see, but yeah, I'm gonna do a little research and get back to you guys. All right, so I'm gonna try this aftermarket carb on the right. Here's the original on the left, and there's just a few little differences. I mean, from the pictures on Amazon, they looked about the same, just a few subtle differences. So there, the throttle inside body looks about the same. Just got to swap over gaskets. The choke and everything right here looks the same. Looks like it has the same plunger piece. If we go here, looks like the same mounting surface, everything. The choke is a little bit different shape. This one, original one on the left here, has that circle right there, while this one does not. So on top here, there's like a little breather hose that's not on this aftermarket one, and there is one on this original one, so I'm gonna have to swap that over. And then when we look here, the original one has a little plunger nipple for the choke, while this one is blocked off, so I'm gonna have to swap this plate. They look like the same screws and mounting and everything, so I'm just gonna have to swap over a few parts, and I think we should be in business. I'm gonna do a impeller change on this Merc 99. So yeah, basically there's a linkage in here. There are two 8mm wrenches you gotta put together, and then loosen this little coupling piece right here, which I've already done. And then yeah, there's 4 bolts holding the lower unit down. So I'm gonna remove those are 10mm. Yeah, so once you remove all the bolts, you still have this coupling here that you gotta take off, so then this can slide down this hole there. All right, here's the old impeller. It's not terrible, it just wasn't peeing the maximum amount of water. Fins are just kind of bent and not as springy as they should be, so yeah, I got a new impeller here, so let's install it. Using the gear oil here, it's blue. It looks pretty good actually. A little black, but not terrible. But yeah, seals are good, so let's change this. All right, with that new impeller, she seems to be peeing better water. With that aftermarket carb, seems to be running pretty good. All I had to do was just basically tweak the air mixture screw a little bit on it too. I put it to about 1.5. It was at like 1 right out of the box. Actually, if you push this in right here, you can give it throttle without putting it in gear. Forward. Yeah, there's reverse. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of these actually. I prefer the just normal lever on the side. But these are really well built motors. I like these motors. So yeah, I think this Mercury's running good. That new impeller, aftermarket carb seems to be working pretty good. You know, this motor's pretty clean. I don't imagine it has too many hours on it, but yeah, I just could not find an OEM like gasket kit because it needed 3 different gaskets. It needed this gasket, it needed the bowl gasket, it was leaking from there, and then even the plunger rubber gasket was like leaking too. So I couldn't find the carb kit with all those OEM ones. There was like aftermarket ones, but I decided just for the price just to go with an aftermarket carb and just see how that worked, and it seems to be working pretty good. I just got this motor behind me here. Let's check this thing out. So yeah, it doesn't have a serial number, but it should be like a late 80s, early 90s. Evinrude 30 horsepower, 2-stroke. It's a long shaft. And little story on this, I picked this up locally in Sacramento here, and the guy recognized me right away. He was a subscriber. His name was Miguel, so appreciate you, dude. He gave me a super good deal on this. He only charged me 20 bucks for this thing. Yeah, it sounds like he got it with the boat that he wanted, and it came with this. He got it for free, it sounded like, and he said he had no use for this motor since he already had another one. And usually when stuff's given away for free, there's usually something wrong with it. So, I mean, I noticed the tiller was pretty stiff. Like once you give it forward, it kind of stays in that position and isn't recoiling back. So it looked like this guy had added this spring there to help the throttle cable move back into place. You can kind of hear some crunching in there. Sounds like maybe there's sand, because there's a lot of sand inside the motor. So, I mean, really the only thing that I would think is if there's a bunch of sand is if this thing fell overboard. So maybe that's why this guy got it for free. But yeah, I already pulled the spark plugs out, so let's just see if this thing's even got compression and spark and go from there. So I got some PB blaster here. I already shot some in the spark plug holes and pulled it over. It's not locked up. Feels like it's actually got some compression, so let's find out. All right, top cylinder. Oh yeah, that feels like it's got compression. Oh wow. Yeah, it's about like 140, 145. That's pretty awesome. So let's check the bottom. Yeah, pretty much dead even, about 140. Oh yeah, I hear it. Yep. Spark. Should hopefully sit. So yeah, in motors that have been sitting, rather than just going straight to a carb clean, sometimes what I'll do is I'll pull the drain screw out, which I've done here. So I'll just put a rag under there. You can see that. So I'm just gonna pump the primer bolt, and then just gonna catch any old fuel that's built up in the carb, since I'm assuming it likely hasn't been drained. See what happens. No way. It's running a little rough. Oh. Alright, so it's not really staying running, it's not really pumping water, so it's going to need an impeller and a carb clean. So we'll start with the carb clean first. Luckily these are pretty easy to get off. There's just 2 13 mil nuts, one there and that one on here. Pretty easy to access, thankfully, on these carbs. So we'll take this carb off and dive into it. I got this carb apart, and there's definitely some chunks of stuff in here, so that's why she wasn't running. So let's clean her out, clean the jet, and yeah, clean the air mixture needle and see what happens. Yeah, looking a lot better. That's just like some stains, but all that corrosion stuff is gone. Alright, I just turned in this air mixture screw all the way. It was about 2 1/4 turns. So we're just gonna take this out, clean it, and put it back to 2 1/4 turns. And there's a little pilot jet in there. Just make sure to clean that guy as well. Still needs a new impeller, but I think that carb clean, I actually put this to about like 2 1/2 turns out. Take the slower unit off, do an impeller change. I was actually going through my parts bin and I found a new impeller, so that's awesome. So yeah, to take this off, there's a screen with a screw on each side that comes out, and so I've already did that. And then there's a linkage in here that you have to undo, and then just take off the bolts for the lower unit, and then this nut right here too. Yeah, to get this off, you gotta take two 13 mil wrenches, do the open end, and then, you know, just slowly, turn by turn, put one on this nut, and then one on the other nut, and just slowly loosen this bracket. All right, so I got the lower unit off, but it came at a cost. So we got this off. I mean, this was clearly a salty motor, and I broke off 2 bolts. You know, there's really nothing I could do. Even the 2 I did extract were like very stuck. So yeah, luckily there's a little bit of stem on each bolt here. So I think I'm gonna weld a nut onto here and see if we can't, but I mean, they are really stuck and really embedded in this motor. So we'll give this a go, see if this works. All right, I'm probably on like my 8th weld. Finally got one to stick a little bit better. I made like a 4 rotation, just slowly kind of wiggling it back and forth. I broke it off again. I had got like a full turn and a half or so, and then broke off again. So let's just keep trying it. Well, after like 20 broken welds, I went and just got the biggest nut I could find, like a 13/16 or 3/4 or something. And yeah, somehow got it. I welded a washer since there wasn't much left, and then welded it to this big nut. So let's try this with this other one. Still got one more, and this is taking like at least a few hours now. All right, so after welding a ton of nuts on, I was able to get 3 out of the 4 bolts, but this last bolt is just so stubborn. I just cannot get it out. So I mean, here's what's left of it. I've tried welding a bunch. I've even tried drilling into it, and this bolt is just basically fused to this midsection now. I just cannot get it out. So I'm just gonna have to leave it. I think I'm just gonna put some marine sealant here, and then put some marine sealant on the hole that the lower unit sits in, and just hopefully that gets a good seal, and 3 out of the 4 bolts should be enough. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So yeah, this lower unit's off. Got the impeller out of this housing here. So I mean, here's the impeller. It's, you know, pretty stiff, and so yeah, I wasn't peeing the optimal amount of water. So yeah, I was looking through my parts. I had a new one here. Change the gear oil here. Got my pump. Seals are good. Gear oil is black. It's not milky, so if it was milky, that was meaning water was getting into it. So yeah, I'm just gonna change this, and should be good to go. Yeah, so that hole's filled with marine sealant, so that should be waterproof now. As far as the bolts, I cleaned those off, cleaned the inside of the holes, and then I used a bunch of anti-seize on them, so cleaned them up. I actually even had some extra Johnson Evinrude lower unit bolts that I ended up using. So I think I got this thing dialed in. It's all painted, being good water. All right, behind me here is going to be the last motor I work on for this video, so let's check this thing out. So yeah, this is a 2007 Mercury 6 horsepower 4-stroke. It's a short shaft with a tiller. Worked on these a ton. These are really good, simple motors. I like these motors. Yeah, this one looks pretty clean. I know it was told it was sitting for a little bit, but must not have been sitting for that long, because I'd imagine very little hours on this thing. Don't see like any rust or anything anywhere. So yeah, let's dive into this, see if we can't get it running. I was checking the oil level, and it was pretty low. There's a dipstick here, and so it wasn't reaching the level of the dipstick. So since I don't know how old this oil is, I'm just gonna change it. So luckily on these motors, there's a little sticker here. So yeah, 10W30, 15 ounces. So I'm gonna change that. So if you turn the motor to its side, there's a 10 mil drain screw here for the oil. So I'm gonna change out this oil. Yeah, that oil looks super clean. So that's good. But yeah, we'll just have some peace of mind and start out with some fresh oil. All right, got her filled up with oil here. So yeah, let's confirm compression and spark on this. Yeah, I mean, this spark plug looks just shy of brand new. So yeah, this thing's barely been ran. It's around like 70, 75, slightly on the low side, but maybe just because it's been sitting a while. It should go up once we run it. So yeah, once we get this running, we'll check the compression again and see how it is. All right, I have a spark plug grounded to the block. Should hopefully see some spark. Yep, good spark, nice and bright. All right, so since this motor's been sitting, we're not sure how long, we'll just dive into this carb and give it a clean. There's just a few 10 mil bolts too long 10 mil bolts right there, and then this little choke linkage here. Actually helps if you just take off the pull starter. There's just a few 10 mil bolts holding that on to get access to that back bolt there. So we'll get this carb off. But yeah, you can kind of see that jet just covered in stuff. Yeah, this bowl here, it's all just like old fuel deposits and varnish and stuff. So yeah, good thing I took this off. So I got this jet out from the top of the carb here. So that's all clean. We'll just spray through that. The carb cleaner should be able to see through there, which we can. And then once you get that jet off, you have this main nozzle here. This thing was pretty nasty. A bunch of stuff came off on my hand. So just make sure that all these little passages, like all these little holes on the sides here, you want those to be clear. Just soak in a carb cleaner for a few minutes. This bowl's already looking like 10 times cleaner. These older carbs, they do have a blocked off air mixture screw, so they put that cap over it so you don't adjust it. I have had to drill these out in the past, so yeah, if it doesn't fire up right, we may have to drill this out, but yeah, other than that, should be good to go. So I got this thing running, but it's not running quite right. So drop the RPMs. It won't get like a nice low idle, which it should. So I've had this issue before on these motors. So again, it stems back to this air mixture screw that's under this brass cap here. So take off this carb again, drill it out, clean that, try to find the right setting for it. Yeah, so to get this brass cap off, just get one of these like center punches. Just try to line it up best you can. Yeah, so when drilling this out, you want to just be very careful not to drill too far because there is a flathead screw, that's your mixture needle in there. So yeah, once you got a deep enough hole, I just got a sheet metal screw here that I've drilled in, and then you should be able to just pry this guy out. Just take your time, and boom, just like that. There's that flathead screw. I didn't drill too far. There's just a little bit of metal shavings in there, and so then now you can properly adjust your air mixture needle. So yeah, just for reference, I'm going to see what this is at right now, so I'm just going to turn it in all the way. Oh, it is down all the way. It's literally all the way. So that's probably why this thing was like hurting for air. Let's just remove this guy, clean it, and then just kind of just play with it and see where it likes to idle. So there's that air mixture screw with the spring on it. So sometimes dirt and stuff can get in there. It's like those metal shavings I don't want going in there. I think I finally got this thing dialed in. Yeah, for some reason that air mixture screw, before I drilled the cap out, it was turned all the way in. So now it's at 1.5 turns out from fully seated. Seems to be the sweet spot. So now it's getting a solid idle now. Yeah, super quiet, clean motor. All the gears work. Forward. This. Give it some RPMs and forward. Yeah, this impeller seems pretty good. So yeah, I think that air mixture screw adjustment did the trick on this motor. Fires right back up. Super quiet motor. Idle's really smooth now. Yeah, this oil here looks basically brand new in the lower unit. The seals look good, not milky. So I'm just gonna leave it. So yeah, I just did compression again now that the motor's warmed up. I was just curious, and I actually looked up on the manual what the compression's supposed to be. It's actually only 42 PSI on this motor, plus or minus like 14 PSI. So yeah, it's reading about like 60, 70 or so. So that's plenty good for this motor. I even tried another gauge, same thing, like around 60. So yeah, I mean, I think this motor's pretty much done with. That's all I got for this vid. Hope you guys learned a thing or two and helped a few people out fix their motor. As always, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. See you in the next vid. Thanks, guys.